Well, hello and welcome to Uncorking a Story. I'm your host, Mike Carlin, and today I'm very excited to introduce you to Lynn Hightower. She's the author of numerous thrillers, including the Sonora, Blair, and Lena Padget detective series. Her internationally best-selling novels have been included in the New York Times list of notable books, the London Times bestseller lists, the W.H. Smith Fresh Talent Awards, and the Shamus Award. Lynn teaches master novel classes in the UCLA Extension Writing Program and works as a manuscript consultant and a writing coach for novelists. Her latest novel, The Enlightenment Project, will be out tomorrow as we record this. Tomorrow is March 1st. Welcome to Uncorking a Story, Lynn Hightower.
Thank you for having me. I am delighted to be here.
Well, certainly delighted to have you. But I will remind you that Uncorking a Story is about the stories behind the story. So we always want to dig into your story.
Okay.
So where, Lynn, tell me, where does your story as an author begin?
Well, when I was in the 5th grade, I ran out of books to read because I read very fast. I don't skim, I read every word, but I could read, a novel a day easily and still hold down the day job. So I started writing my own during geography and history and math class. And not surprisingly, the teacher took it. And then she gave it back and said, "This is awesome. And we're going to start a newspaper and let you do a serial story every week." And I was like, "Oh, okay." She said, "You're also flunking geography. Would you please pay a little more attention?" So I pulled that up to a D and started writing short stories for our little newspaper. And I was off and running.
Do you remember anything about the story you were writing in your geography class?
Yes.
What was it about?
It was called Karen McDonald and the Mystery of the Haunted Castle.
Oh.
Yes. And I left her hanging over a trap door and never went back to it. And I'm sure she's really getting impatient with me by that.
I was gonna say, do you ever imagine that some of your ideas are like out there, like really, and they're just waiting for you to come back to them?
Interesting that you bring that up, because here's what I really honestly believe. The more I write, particularly now, the more I feel like the story is an entity and it exists. And it's in a fog all around me and I'm pulling the threads, okay? Now that doesn't mean I can just throw any sloppy thing down on the page, but the actual story and the characters and their journey, I mean, they feel very real to me. And it's kind of like, oh, okay, now what? And now what? No, wait a minute, that's not good enough. You're gonna have to back up and let's rethink. But it does feel like that to me. It feels like a really very real entity that's been waiting on me to get on with it.
Well, so that's 5th grade. Tell me, what very accomplished by the time you're in 5th grade. That's very exciting. What happens next? I mean, so you kind of continue through, grade school and always writing, or
always writing, always telling mysteries, thrillers, scary, paranormal stories. In the 7th grade, I started writing scary plays, and my teacher, for some reason, let me put them on for the school, and I cast them and directed them and wrote them. Not too much ego, right? And then I, at 16, I started college at the University of Kentucky.
That sounds young for college.
But it's not, because when I started 1st grade, I lived in Georgia, and if you were 5 by January the 1st, you could start 1st grade, and if you were 4, you could start kindergarten. So I just started early, and I skipped a year of high school, not because I'm smart, but because I added up all the credits, and I thought, if I don't take study hall, I can be out in 3 years. So that's what I did.
Got it.
I was impatient.
Did you? I mean, it sounds like you like the scary stuff. Just that first story, Karen in the haunted house.
Castle.
Sorry.
Okay,
Yeah, my bad.
Okay.
What's your fascination with that?
Oh, because there's such an unseen world all around us. And also, let's face it, it's just more interesting, right? Is there something out there? And actually, I wound up living in a house that was incredibly haunted while I was writing The Piper, which is a very scary story about phone calls from the dead.
Oh,
It's a thing. Okay, I ran across that. I didn't make that up. And a lot of times it's a very wonderful spiritual thing where you hear from somebody you love, but naturally I had to twist it into something malevolent. And half the stuff I put in that novel was going on in the house, which I found absolutely terrifying. And, we were going to buy it and we decided, yeah, no, I think we'll just move on out.
How did you know? Like, what were some of the signs that there was a presence or a number of presences there?
It was not subtle, all right? Sound asleep, and in the middle of the night, the faucet of water turns on full blast in the bathroom. I wake up, my late husband woke up and he looked at me and he said, "Did you do that?" I said, "No." "Did you do that?" He said, "No." So I ran in and turned it off. I said, "What are you doing? You can't go back to sleep. We need to run around in circles." And he said, "But I have to be up at 5. Good night." He would just take it in stride. He was French. It was no big deal. Ghost would turn on the water. He needed to get some sleep. Lights going on and off. And the creepiest thing was a light would go on and I would sit up and say, "Stop it, turn it off." Off. Then back on again. And I said, "Stop it," and off. That was so freaky to me. So yeah, that kind of thing is wonderful fodder for the novel you're writing, but as your daily life, not so much.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm running out of that house. I'm doing the
Me too.
I'm getting out of this place. This is nuts.
The
But
lease was up. We packed up, and every time I would pack and stack up a bunch of boxes, I would turn around and they'd all get knocked over. And I'd be like, and one day I sat down and I said, "Listen to me, I'm leaving with or without the boxes. So you just quit." I don't know. It worked.
did you ever get a backstory on that house? Did you ever do any research on it?
No, I kind of wish I had. I went back and looked at it a couple of years ago. It was a beautiful little place and just the kind of cottage I love. And I looked at it and I thought, ugh, no, wrong. It feels so wrong to me. No nostalgia. Really glad I didn't buy it, and I was off. I will not go back.
Yeah. Wow. So it certainly give you some storylines or some color for the story, though, huh?
Yeah, if you don't have to make it up. Of course, nobody believes you, but it was true.
So when I was in college, I got to meet Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Did you? They are so interesting.
Yes. Well, I went to I live in Connecticut. This is where I'm recording this. And I went to the University of Connecticut. Their son, I believe, went there as well. So they would do a thing every year where they would put on a big show and kind of present. It was a story, story focused, but scared the hell out of me. I mean, it was and now of course all of those movies are coming out with.
Oh, I love those movies.
Those are good. Those Conjuring movies and Annabelle, they're really well done.
They're very well done. I love the stories, but the idea that they would have a place in their house where they kept all those malevolent objects. Yeah. No, I would not do that. I would not want it in my house.
I know they've got the Annabelle doll in like a glass container. I'm like, no, this is no, thank you.
I'm not going to be, schlepping around the house in my sweatpants with Annabelle in the next room.
No way. No. No, I'm out. I'm out at that point. But certainly very interesting people and interesting presentations.
Yeah.
So when did your first book come out? When was your first publication?
Gosh, I'm trying to remember. Early 90s. I had written a book and it had gotten accepted and it was due to be published, and then Random House bought out the publishing and axed the whole line, including my book. So I was in a bad mood for a whole year. And I thought, all right, the next one's for me. I'm going to put everything in it I love. So I put in homicide cops, aliens, secret tunnels, ghosts, and I put it all in a book. And I sent it to my new agent, who had another novel. And I just sent him 6 chapters, and he sent it back and he said, "Oh, I love this. I'm going to send it to the editor that has the book that's out." She called him 2 days later and she said, "Matt, I don't really like the novel you sent me of hers, but I love these 6 chapters. So I want a series." And I'm like, so he called me and he said, "Do you have any other ideas?" And I said, "Sure." I lied. He said, "She'll call you in 15 minutes. And I thought, oh, thanks, 15 minutes. That gives me plenty of time to prepare. But, we had a great conversation, and I came up with some good ideas, I think. I don't really remember what I said. And that series was born, and it's, near and dear to my heart. Yeah.
Did you ever not write for a living, or were you always, sort of a professional author writer in your adult life?
I always did some kind of writing. Yeah. I mean, didn't I support myself at it? But none of us do, right? It's very up and down kind of thing. But yeah, I wrote television commercials for a local television station, and I always had a novel on the go, no matter what. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So what was your day job? Was it as a copywriter or for
I was
commercials,
a,
or?
yeah, I was writing copy for television, local television
Yeah.
commercials, and I enjoyed it. I loved writing it because I wanted you to fall in love with the product, and you got to be concise. You got to create an image. So it was actually really good training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also cool to see your work on TV. I mean, right? I mean, that's
I went, oh yeah, for the commercials. Yeah, it was very cool. I really liked it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this new book, The Enlightenment Project. What's can you give us the, without giving it away, of course, give us the high points.
Okay, so Mike, have you ever known anybody who was possessed?
I had a sister-in-law that my brother, my twin brother, divorced. We're pretty sure that she had a demonic entity inside her, but there's there's no
If she doesn't
proof.
want help, there's nothing you can do, right?
There's no proof that that was the case. I've seen The Exorcist about 1,001 times. That's about as
Mhm.
close as I've gotten. And any kind of movies on exorcism, I've always been sort of fascinated by as a good Catholic boy.
Well, yeah, and didn't that movie terrify you? Didn't the book terrify you?
Oh my gosh. So the movie terrified me. And then, I mean, I had seen it so many times. It's like the movie Airplane for me. Like, I always find something funny to laugh at in Airplane
Mhm.
every time I see it. I always see something to be freaked out by in The Exorcist every time I see it.
Yeah, and I found the book pretty terrifying too. But I always wondered, you know, what does it was based on a true story, but of course the possessed child was male, was a boy, and I always wondered what happened to him. And I started thinking about, well, what do you do if you were possessed as a child? I mean, do you tell people you date? Do you tell your wife? Okay. And how do you deal with that trauma? And do you worry about it ever coming back? And that's when my character, Noah Archer, was born. He's a neurologist, and he's actually a neurosurgeon, not neurologist. And he keeps it a deep, dark secret for two reasons. One, he's really ashamed that he was vulnerable to it and he doesn't know why it happened to him. And two, he's afraid that if he gives it attention and thinks about it, it'll bring it back.
Mhm.
And that's his big fears, that it will come back. So he does a research project called the Enlightenment Project, where he stimulates neurons in your brain and brings enlightenment on demand. And it's a huge success. A lot of his patients are dealing with addictions and mental illness and chronic depression. And they have amazing results. Lots of them do. And then some of them go the other way and have very dark results. And it kind of wakes up that entity that was haunting him and possessing him when he was a child. And what he finds out is, well, if you show people, the other side and the spiritual world and the dark and the light, my project is a success. Some people go with the light side and some people go with the dark side.
Mhm. Yeah. It's like the Force, right?
Yeah, it's like the Force.
But I'm curious, just in terms of exorcism, what sort of captivates you about that topic? Like, why, what do you think about writing, including that as a key plot point here?
I was just kind of Googling around on it, wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And then I was just astounded at all the research I did. I had no idea it was so mainstream. You know, they're going to be doing 500,000 exorcisms in Italy this year alone. The number of exorcism priests has just shot up. Exorcists are mainstream. They're on YouTube. You can pull up YouTube and listen to them talk about exorcisms, and it's just like it's become like matter of fact. And actually, it's always been hidden, but it's really nothing new. It's something every culture has had in in their worries and in their religions. And so now people are just bringing it out in the open. And 50% of people in the US believe in possession.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds high to me. And then the number of exorcisms in Italy sounds really high. Because you
I
think,
was shocked, but you're familiar with M. Scott Peck, who wrote The
oh,
People of
sure.
the Lie?
Yeah,
He spent the last few years of his practice working with people who were possessed and doing exorcisms.
I did
That
not. That's new news to me.
blew me away. That really blew me away. Well, at the time, he said that, he was working with someone and he said, well, I thought they were possessed, but I was just going to help them through that. Right. And then he became a full-on believer, and it was his hope that it would become a recognized psychiatric condition, and it has
Right.
now on the DSM.
So yeah, because you think like in modern society, modern medicine, like this idea of, some outside being, force, spirit coming in and possessing you, you're
Mhm.
tempted to kind of explain that by, well, we know so much more about psychiatry now. We know so much more about sort of borderline personality disorders and multiple personality disorders and, schizophrenia. So that I think, in my head, it's like modern society probably wants to lean on science for that. But there is this, I believe anyway, there is this, possibility that, science can't explain, what's happening in these
And
in
that's such a crucial point, because you think, well, yeah, it's just some kind of mental condition. So I've been talking to some therapists and some psychiatrists about it, because I'm thinking, all right, the Exorcist says that before we accept anybody for an exorcism, we run them through, an evaluation by a psychiatrist. So I said, well, how would you evaluate that? How would you know it's not like dissociation disorder or schizophrenia or something like that? And they said, well, you check you check the boxes of the symptoms of what is or isn't working. And what the psychiatrist I talked to recently said, look, mental illness is from within, it's internal, and you can see the internal things that bring it out. She said something like that comes from without, it's
Mhm.
external. And so that kind of I found that fascinating, though,
Yeah.
intentionally. But I have a letter on my desk from a Southern California exorcism team. And what they told me is that the pandemic has really escalated the issue with a lot of people. And I like the point that they made, was that he said, these are good people, these are not crazy people, dark people, but these are people of good heart, good faith, and they need help. And they said, only 5% are really possessed, and a lot of what they do is a ministry of healing and deliverance. And I had asked them if they wanted to do, like a Zoom publicity thing with me, and they said they were very tempted. And the team sat down and actually talked it out, but they said, we are barely keeping up with demand right now. And if we have a lot of publicity, we're never going to see the light of day on this. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thanks. Yeah.
Right. Nice problem to have though for them though. Yeah, out of curiosity, like, the role the pandemic is playing. Obviously it's impacting mental health. And I
Right.
see that certainly in young people. I have 3 19-year-olds at home, and that's in March 2020, there were not good times in the Carlin household. They were finishing
Yeah.
their senior
Rough
year
times.
in
Yeah.
high school, and now they're cut off from everybody. So I could absolutely see where the mental health, but I'm curious as to like the rise in exorcisms due to the pandemic. What do you suppose that's all about?
That's such a good question. I think that I think I think what it's really about is that more people are asking for help when they need it. I don't think this issue is new. I think people have been living with it, quietly. I mean, who are you going to tell, right? I would be pretty reluctant to tell anybody. But now that it's going more mainstream, now that they can Google it and they can go, oh, well, here's this priest on YouTube and he's talking about what he does and what the symptoms are and how I can be helped, then I just think the information is out there. You know, they set up an exorcism hotline in Milan where people just call in. And they had so many calls that would just keep going down because they couldn't keep it up. It would just be overwhelmed. And they said, no, most of these people are not possessed, but they've got issues. They're worried and they want to know, is this an issue? And so we can help a lot of them, but only about 5%.
Yeah.
And you want to know who the average classic possessed person is?
Oh, I would love to know. Let me take a guess though. Let's
Mhm.
see. I'm gonna put my game show contestant hat on.
Yes, please. I want you to guess.
I'm gonna guess middle-aged women.
Anything else?
Anything else? Mothers. Another predictor could be white collar background.
Okay.
How far off am I?
We've got the gender wrong.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, we'll see. And here's where the information's coming from. Okay.
Yeah.
Sociologists are studying it now. They're studying why people believe and you know what helps them. And we had 2 Italian sociologists looking at the notes kept by an exorcist for 10 years, just detailed notes of all his exorcisms. And here they came up with your classic one who's possessed. That's the 5%. Male, so you got your gender wrong. Male, very highly educated, very successful in business, pretty wealthy, really, you know, moving and shaking in the world. And that is your classic possessed person. And usually those guys are in pretty deep. And it takes a lot of exorcisms to, you know, heal them. They get relief with every exorcism and they get better and better, but some of them it takes years. And of course, it's not like the movies where you do one exorcism and boom, it's gone. It's a gradual process of healing.
Yeah, it's like therapy.
Very much so.
But why do you suppose it's that group? I mean, is this like your classic selling your soul to the devil type person, or?
It does make you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm picturing a bunch of hedge fund guys.
Exactly. But wouldn't you also think that if you were from the dark side, that guys like that would be high value targets?
Mm.
You know, you can get one of those guys and cause them problem. You can cause a lot of trouble for a lot of people. That's the way I think about it.
I have to know, like, what are some of the signs, right, that something is possession, you know, versus like something else? Like, what is there like a checklist? Like, what's the?
Dude, there is a checklist, and it's pretty classic. And this is for the deeply possessed, not the people that are feeling oppressed or you know, haunted. You know, most 80% are infestations of hauntedness. That's the trouble coming. So it comes from without, not within the person, which is kind of a relief. You can move. Okay, so they have extraordinary strength. They know things that they couldn't possibly know. Like they can look at the exorcist and say, you know, this morning when you were having breakfast, you were really doubting this. You were really feeling that you didn't have the right to do this, etc. I mean, just things they couldn't possibly know, they know. Speaking languages that they couldn't possibly know, occasionally backward, which is quite a feat. A huge and strong reaction, aversion to any kind of religious, across holy water, total freak out. Just a malevolent anger and rage toward the exorcist. And a lot of times their eye color changes when they're, you know, in the throes of the possession, and it goes their eye color goes yellow. And that all adds up to something pretty weird looking.
No, yeah, absolutely.
That's not your classic signs of schizophrenia. That's your classic signs of, oh my gosh, this person is,
So what I'm really curious about is, if malevolent spirits can do this, right? If the I don't know, creatures from hell, like whatever we want to characterize them as.
yeah,
Is the opposite true? Can like an angel type character inhabit somebody?
yes.
So that I'm in, because you don't really hear much about that, but now the writer in me is kind of turning like this. That could be interesting.
Well, it's something I address in the book, actually.
Oh, cool. Well, and without giving anything away, because we don't want to do that. But what's that all about?
There is. It's just called an angelic possession. And, what's the difference between an angelic and a demonic possession? Well, what's the outcome? Are there good things happening with the angelic possession as opposed to dark, malevolent things happening? The person there's always a smell of flowers, something very sweet and flowers when it happens. And they're there to do good and to give wisdom and to give comfort, which is the opposite. And it's a peaceful possession, but a powerful one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was shocked. I don't know why the yin and the yang, but when I found out about that, I thought, oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna pause talking about possessions for a moment.
Okay.
And maybe we'll come back. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I have a few like standard questions here that I always ask people, and I always like to see where this kind of takes us. First would be kind of a softball question. Favorite TV show or movie when you were a kid?
Oh, when I was a kid, when I was really little, I loved Mighty Mouse.
Oh, here I come to save the day.
How could you resist a heroic mouse who sings opera? Because, before I got my full height of 5 feet, I used to be terribly teeny, little short. And so this mouse that had superpowers that could save the day and sing opera, I found that irresistible. So that was my first crush was Mighty Mouse.
Well, how about favorite TV show or movie of all time, regardless of age?
Oh, my favorite movie is probably Witness.
Oh, Harrison Ford.
Yes, because I love the story delivery. It hits the ground running. It's high stakes. It's dangerous, and then you've got that culture clash. With this tough cop and the Amish, and the love story, and then the betrayal that the people that did it were cops he worked with and that were friends of his. What's not to love about Witness? I thought it was just awesome. Absolutely my favorite. Yeah.
A good one. Great Harrison Ford, young Harrison Ford, right? Younger Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Favorite movie about demonic possession. I guess we are getting back to possession. Favorite movie about demonic possession, or favorite movie or book.
Okay, well, favorite movie about demonic possession. The Exorcist really scared me, but I also love the the Conjuring movies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the first one was just really the best, I thought. But they're all good. I just
totally good. I really liked The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Did you? Yeah.
I thought that was a good one to me, because there was a scene where he's awoken at 3 a.m. and as a kid I learned 3 a.m. Is the inverse of the time that Jesus supposedly died on the cross, as 3 p.m. and that being the most unholy hour of the day. I just always remember that, and that scene kind of brought it home for me, and that scared me just as much as anything, as much as any special effect in the movie. That scene did something to me, that's for sure.
Well, that's kind of the time of day. I usually get up around 4:30 to write, because that's when the world is quiet, but it's also when the world is a little bit scary.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, considering the kind of things I write, it's perfect. But I have to tell you that it's really good to have a German Shepherd named Leah, and she writes with me as she lays down and sleeps or watches over me. But I can't tell you, several times I'd be writing some kind of scene, and she would sit up and look over my shoulder and let go of this really low, menacing growl. And I'm thinking, oh, what do you see that I don't see? It's terrifying, you know. Good dog, good dog.
Oh, geez. Yeah, no. I have a 15-year-old golden retriever at home.
Oh, you do.
And she is, she's getting close to, every time we think she's getting close, she like bounces back.
Good for her.
But she, like, throughout the course of an evening, she now sleeps downstairs because she can't make it upstairs anymore. Throughout the course of an evening, she will just bark randomly. And I'm like, I wonder, is that senile barking, or is she seeing some shit that the rest of us
don't think
see?
it's random. I don't think it's random. No, and I have to say that is the hour that sometimes Leah leaps up off the bed and starts barking fiercely, and I'll look outside, but there's nothing out there. And she's like, trust me, out there.
There's some shit's going down there you're not aware of.
Yes, but it's going down, babe.
Yeah. I always wonder, like, what's the motivation for these malevolent spirits? Like, is it just pure evil to wreak havoc and
wreak havoc, oppress you, depress you, make you miserable in the world. It's kind of like a spread of misery, like an infection.
Yeah.
Oof. I know. Well, right.
It really does remind me of my brother's ex-wife. Question number 3. How do you feel when you're staring at a blank piece of paper or a blank computer screen, depending on how you write, with the intention of writing something?
Well, I write my first draft by hand. And I usually, if I have a blank piece of paper and I have no words in my head, then I'll probably play solitaire to get me into the zone. But most of the time now, I have the words in my head and I'm just ready to sit down and just start writing them on the page. So that's nice. So I feel pretty good. It's like, okay, let me get it down in my handwriting. Oh, the worst is my handwriting is terrible. So I'm keying it in, later. I'm like, man, I know that was a good section and I just cannot decipher anything that I wrote,
The struggle is real. I got straight, unsatisfactories in handwriting from the nuns in the school that I went to as a kid. Penmanship was not my twin brother, beautiful writing.
Really?
Me, forget about it. My son, beautiful writing. One of my daughters, it's like chicken scratch, as my mother would say.
But there's a creative loop, between writing by hand and your neural. It's art in the body, as Wendell Berry would tell you. And anybody that's writing, if you, I respect your process, but I would give it a try, because my work that I first draft on the page is always much better. It goes faster, even though it's illegible, and it's just better work. So I would give it a try.
Yeah, good. Well, that's that could lead into our next question, which is, what's the best piece of advice you would give to an aspiring author?
I have a lot of advice for aspiring authors. The one is, if you tell the story you wish someone would tell you, the kind of story you would just love to curl up with and read, readers will forgive you anything if you deliver on Once Upon a Time. I really believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Second, give yourself permission to be a novelist. This is work of your heart. It's what you really want to do. And it's not for the cool kids or for the special people. If you have a story, if you have a story to tell, go ahead and tell it and get it down as best you can. And then, it's a brutal business. Not every novel that should be published is published. So the only way to keep yourself sane is to do everything you can, but just accept that your story is going to find its place in the universe, and send it out there and hope that it finds its way into the hands of anybody that would like to read it. That's how I survive.
Yeah, I mean, brutal is I think a good adjective to use there, because just from all the time you put in to write something, then to find an agent, the right editor, the publisher, do everything you need to do to promote it. It's not for the faint of heart.
It's not, but I separate the business side from the creative side. Okay. And, you know, I take pleasure from the work. I like telling the story. I've created this entity that was already out there and wanted me to get it down on the page. So there's great satisfaction in that. And of course, we want to sell lots of books and get it out. But, you know, part of that is because I want to talk to the people that might like to read it. And they're all readers like me. But I also think one reason we read and one reason we write is so we're not so alone in the world. You know, if my character can handle possessions and the demonic and keep his family safe and create enlightenment on demand and survive at the end of the day, you can too.
Yeah. Well, to that, I mean, is there any lesson about writing or even publishing that you feel like you had to learn the hard way?
Everything I had to learn the hard way. Everything. Um, And that's why I work with writers, because I'm telling them, look, what I'm going to tell you isn't rocket science. It took me years to figure it out. Let me give it to you in 5 minutes. And they're like, really? Okay, let me take a note, you know. And I mean, but that's okay. You know, it's just part of your process. But here's one. Be very careful who you listen to. There are a lot of people, good people, smart people who aren't actually novelists. And they might give you really good advice, but sometimes it comes from the outside in because they're not actually doing it. So you would listen to what they say doesn't work about a story, but you might not listen to how they say to fix it. And so if you get advice or notes and you're not sure about it, instead of roaming the internet and Googling the subject and making yourself crazy, sit down and write a test scene, write it both ways, your way, their way. That's one afternoon. And you will know as soon as you've written both, oh, this is the one that works. So trust your instincts on that. But instead of agonizing and trying to find out what the right way is, write it both ways and you'll know.
There you go. That's
Yeah.
a great advice. Great advice.
Please.
And speaking of
You know how
advice,
long it took me to figure that out? It's just ridiculous. Now you know in 3 minutes.
now you know. The more you know.
Yeah.
But speaking of advice, if you could write a letter to your younger self, you know, maybe it's that fifth grader who was, you know, not studying geography when she should have been, right? Not doing the math homework,
Uh-huh.
writing about the haunted castle.
Yeah.
If you could write a letter to that younger, you know, younger you, Lynn, what are some of the things you would tell your younger self?
Okay. I would say don't hesitate. I would say your best decisions are always made through your gut instinct. So don't let your brain talk you into or out of things. Go with your instinct. That's always going to be your best decision. And then I would say, you know, the only thing that really matters in the world, you know, because life is going to come at you with really good things and really bad things, right? So the only thing that really matters in the world is who you love. So love them well.
There you go.
Tell me.
Wow. Love them well.
Love them well.
That's great. That's very inspiring. I don't know. I feel like I kind of got a lump in my throat on that one.
Thank you.
Well, the Enlightenment Project comes out as we're recording this tomorrow, March 1st. Where can people buy the book, Lynn?
Anywhere. You can go on my website and find links, but the links are going to be indie bookstores, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Truly, wherever books are sold, you're going to find it.
All right. And if people wanted to go to that website or follow you on social media, where do they go to do that?
LynnHightower.com.
There you go. And actually speak for a moment. I know you also do sort of manuscript consulting, coaching for you know, authors. Same place to go to learn about those.
Yeah, there's actually a contact form, and it, you know, I'm just going to ask you some quick questions like, you know, what do you really want with your book? What's your vision? What are your writing worries? Because every time I write a book and I get stuck on things, I keep a worry list. So I can go back to it later and keep on writing. So what's your worries? You know, and tell me all of that, and then let me get back to you and we'll figure something out. Yeah.
Very good. All right. Well, Lynn, it was a pleasure chatting with you. I thank you for your time and wish you great success for the Enlightenment Project.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Mike.